What if I told you the story you've believed about death, the one passed down in whispers at funerals and painted in stained glass, was never the whole truth? What if the image of a glowing angel descending to greet your soul was a beautiful illusion, a comforting veil meant to ease your fear but not to reveal reality? You've been told that when your final breath slips from your body, an angel comes, a celestial figure, wings outstretched, light pouring from its presence, ready to carry you into the next world. It's soothing, isn't it? The idea that a divine being will cradle you in your most vulnerable moment, that something holy and untouchable will lift you away from all that once hurt. But beneath that story lies something deeper, something older, something more personal. Because the truth is, it's not always an angel who meets you first, and maybe it never was. There's a reason this narrative persists. It's clean, it's easy. Angels are universal symbols of peace and protection, perfect messengers of heaven. They require no explanation, no familiarity. They appear, they rescue. But you are not some random soul waiting for assignment. You are not anonymous in the eyes of the universe, and the moment you cross that threshold, the breath between this world and the next, is not some standardized event. It is the most personal moment your soul will ever experience. And so, what greets you cannot be impersonal. It cannot be unfamiliar. It cannot be a stranger with wings. What if, instead of an angel, it's your mother's voice that breaks through the veil, or your father's hand reaching toward you, calm and steady, just as it was when you were a child? What if it's the scent of your grandmother's kitchen, the laughter of a sibling long past, the loving eyes of a pet you thought you'd never see again? What if the one who meets you is not a being from myth but a soul you've always known? There's a reason that idea stirs something in you, because deep down, part of you remembers. This isn't the first time your soul has transitioned. This isn't your first exit, nor will it be your last. And always, there has been a guide. But not some impersonal figure assigned by cosmic bureaucracy. No, the guide is chosen by love, and love never sends a stranger. You see, when you die, it's not about ceremony, it's about connection. You don't need wings to feel safe. You don't need a halo to find home. What you need is recognition. What you crave in that moment isn't proof of divinity. It's the comfort of something known, something that says, I see you, I remember you, I've come to take you home. And they do. They always come, not because they were ordered to, but because they never left. You were never alone in this life. You may have felt alone. You may have cried out in your darkest hours, convinced no one heard you. But someone always did. A presence walked with you, silently, softly, through every loss, every triumph, every question. And when your moment comes, when this chapter ends, that presence doesn't suddenly appear. It simply becomes visible. There is a beautiful lie you were told, that an angel will come to lift you up, and while that lie was born of good intentions, meant to soothe your fear, it may have distracted you from something even more profound. Because the truth isn't less beautiful. It's more. The one who comes for you is not an angel dressed in light. The one who comes is someone your soul knows. Someone whose energy fits yours like the final puzzle piece. Someone who can walk with you across the bridge between worlds without you ever needing to ask who they are. You will know them, instantly, because they carry the signature of love. Not a manufactured, theoretical love, but a love you've tasted. A love that lived and breathed and held your hand when life broke you open. That's who comes. And sometimes, that presence is so radiant, so unshakable in its peace, that it doesn't speak a word. It doesn't need to. Its vibration is enough to still every fear, silence every doubt. That is not the arrival of a stranger. That is the homecoming of your soul. But this truth challenges something deep inside you. Because if you believe that only holy beings are allowed to escort you into the next life, you miss the revelation that you were always holy. That the people you loved, the ones who held you, laughed with you, hurt with you, healed with you, they weren't just characters in your life story. They were spiritual anchors. Parts of your eternal tribe. Some of them promised, long before this incarnation, that they would be there when your time came. And they've kept that promise. You don't need to ascend alone. You were never meant to. This idea, it shifts everything. It tells you that death isn't an exit through a cold hallway toward a light you don't recognize. It's a walk into a room where familiar eyes are waiting, and the moment you arrive, you aren't questioned, you're embraced. No interrogation, no performance review, just the quiet, powerful knowing, you made it. You're safe now. That moment was designed for you, and it will not be taken from you by doctrine or tradition. The universe is far too loving for that. The bonds you've formed, the connections you've nurtured, both in this life and the ones before it, they are not erased in death. They are amplified. So the next time you hear someone say that angels carry you into the afterlife, smile. Let them have that comfort if they need it. But you'll know something different. You'll know that your crossing is not handled by strangers, but by those who know your soul's true name. And maybe, just maybe, the one who meets you will not have wings, but they'll have your laugh, or your favorite song, or the scent of jasmine they always wore. And you'll remember, because you always knew, it was never about an angel, it was about love. And love remembers, always. What if everything you've been taught about death stopped just short of the truth? What if the moment after your last breath isn't darkness or silence, not a drifting emptiness, but something else entirely? Something astonishingly alive. The body may have stilled, the lungs may have emptied, but you, the true you, are still very much aware. You haven't vanished, you've shifted. And in that shift, a presence is already moving toward you, one that knows your soul like no one else ever could. There's a sacred misunderstanding that says death is the end, a void, a disappearance into the unknown. But the soul doesn't vanish when the body dies, it expands. Like a bird freed from its cage, your consciousness stretches beyond what physical eyes ever allowed you to see. The moment of separation is not a blackout, it's a blooming. And in that blooming, you begin to perceive the world, not through eyes, but through vibration, through essence. You feel everything, but without pain. You hear, not with ears, but with knowing. And above all, you love, fiercely, unshakably, without the constraints of the body that once held your heart hostage. As your body lies still, you are more awake than ever, more yourself than you've ever been. Every illusion of identity begins to slip away like clothing no longer needed. The labels, the burdens, the roles, you feel them melt into nothingness. And yet, you remain, not floating aimlessly, not confused, not alone. Because even before your soul has fully released its tether, someone is already there, not a stranger, not some unknown gatekeeper, but someone who knows exactly how to hold your essence without overwhelming it. Someone who has walked this path before, and more importantly, someone who's walked with you for longer than you can recall. They don't arrive like a parade. There's no spectacle. There's no booming voice announcing their presence. It's subtler than that. It's the way the air softens. It's the way you suddenly feel remembered. You don't see them at first, you recognize them. Your heart calls their name before your mind does. And when you finally turn toward that frequency, because you will turn, there they are. Not as they were when they passed, not as some ghostly echo, but as their truest form, the one your soul always knew behind the mask of their earthly life. For some, it's a mother who left too soon. For others, it's a father whose silence once carried unspoken love. It could be a child, a sibling, a friend, a teacher of the soul. It could even be a guide you've never known in the physical world, but whose presence feels more familiar than your own skin. And sometimes, just sometimes, it is a light so profound and so complete that it instantly dissolves every last trace of fear. That light does not speak in words, it speaks in vibration, pure love, undiluted, unmistakable. You are not drifting through some cosmic tunnel waiting to be rescued. You are being welcomed. There is nothing random about it. You were not assigned a being to come for you. You were remembered. And whoever is coming, whatever form they take, they are doing so out of love, not obligation. They have waited, they have watched, and they have chosen to be the one who helps you remember what you've forgotten. That first moment after death is not a test, it is a reunion. The soul doesn't panic. The confusion that some people describe isn't fear, it's awe. Imagine having lived in a dark room your whole life, and suddenly someone opens the door and light floods in. Your eyes squint, you hesitate. But soon, you realize you were never meant to live in the dark. and the one who opened the door is someone you've missed for what feels like lifetimes. There's something else that happens in that moment. You become aware of the grief of the living. Not in a painful way, not as a weight or a chain, but like a faint echo in the distance. You can feel the sorrow of those you left behind. You can hear the cries, the prayers, the silence at the kitchen table. And yet, you're not trapped by it. You are touched by their love, by their longing. And sometimes, you try to speak back. You try to whisper, "I'm okay. I'm here. I was never gone." But the veil is thick from their side. And so you wait. You trust. You know that in time, they will feel you in the places you used to be, in the wind, in dreams, in the way the light enters the room. But you? You are not waiting for understanding. You are crossing. And your crossing is not lonely, it is not silent. There is a warmth that surrounds you now, like sunlight on skin after a long winter. The one who came for you is not rushing you. They are patient. They walk at your pace. They know you're remembering. They know you're adjusting. You've left behind pain, but not awareness. And they want you to feel safe before you move any further. And so you walk, if it can even be called walking. There are no feet, no path. But the motion is real. It's guided. You're not lost. You're being led. And every step, or vibration, is taking you further from fear and deeper into remembrance. You are becoming yourself again. The strange thing is, this moment doesn't feel foreign. It feels like home. Like something you've done before. And in many ways, you have. You've died before. You've crossed before. And every time, someone met you. Someone walked with you. And someone helped you return to the place where love has no opposites. That's why the idea of being left alone at death is not just terrifying, it's untrue. The soul is never left to wander, never abandoned. There is always a presence waiting, one that vibrates in harmony with you. And even if your last moments in the physical were chaotic or sudden or silent, even then, someone was already on their way. You were never out of sight, not even for a second. This presence doesn't always come with light shows or thunderous announcements. Sometimes, it's as simple as a scent you forgot you loved, a voice that speaks without words, a hand you feel even though you have no hand to feel it with. That's how you'll know. Because the soul doesn't need evidence, it needs resonance, and in that moment after your final breath, resonance is the language that speaks louder than any doctrine, louder than any belief. You are not alone, you are remembered, and you are being met. Not in judgment, not in ritual, but in love. What if the most important truth about death has been quietly passed over, hidden in plain sight, while the world clings to symbols that only tell half the story? What if the first being to greet you after death isn't an angel draped in light, but someone so close to your soul that their presence feels like remembering who you are? For generations, people have taken comfort in the thought that an angel would be there at the final breath, a divine escort arriving on cue, wings unfurled, duties fulfilled. But the deeper truth is far more intimate, far more extraordinary. Because the first presence isn't always an angel. In fact, more often than not, it's someone who knows you. Someone who has loved you beyond this lifetime. Someone who doesn't meet you out of divine assignment, but because they've been walking beside you long before your first breath in this life. This truth unsettled the religious leaders of its time. It challenged the ministers, the priests, the spiritual authorities who needed the afterlife to follow clean, scripted lines. An angel was a safe answer. It required no explanation, no emotional complexity. Angels were universal, unpersonalized. But this other idea, the possibility that the one who comes for you is not a generic divine being but your mother, your best friend, your guide, or even Christ consciousness itself, this shattered the neat architecture of belief and replaced it with something that could not be contained, love that continues past the veil. Imagine dying and being met not by some faceless celestial messenger, but by your grandmother's eyes, the ones that watched you sleep as a child, or your father's laugh, echoing through a dimension where time no longer rules. Imagine hearing your name, not your earthly name, but the one your soul remembers, and turning toward a presence that feels like home. There is no need for introduction, no need for questions. The being before you knows you, not your story, not your titles or achievements, but your essence, and you know them. recognition floods you like sunlight pouring through a crack in the clouds. You thought you'd forgotten, but you hadn't. You just hadn't seen clearly in a while. This first presence is not a symbol. It is not a test. It is a mirror of your soul's vibration. If you've lived with compassion, truth, and a longing for love, the one who comes to meet you will carry that same energy. They reflect what you have nurtured within yourself. This is not judgment. This is resonance. The universe does not hand out punishments or rewards in that moment. It simply brings you what aligns with your frequency. And that frequency, your unique spiritual signature, is what calls in your escort. Sometimes, that escort is not a guide from this life, but one from another. A soul familiar who may have never walked beside you in the physical realm, but who has journeyed with you across dimensions. They know your true name. They remember your light before it was clothed in form. They may appear to you in the shape most comforting to you, as a teacher, a parent, a beloved friend. But underneath the form is pure awareness, pure intention. Their only role in that moment is to love you across. And yes, sometimes it is Christ. Not as a figure from stained glass windows or theological texts, but as a radiant presence that completely dissolves fear. A light so powerful that it doesn't need to speak. It simply is. To encounter that consciousness in the first moment after death is to remember who you are without resistance, to be washed in a vibration that reminds you that love was never something you had to earn, it was what you were made of all along. This changes everything. Because if the first presence isn't assigned based on divine protocol, but chosen based on love, then death is not a crossing into the unknown, it is a homecoming. A reunion orchestrated by memories so deep, it predates time itself. It means you are not being led away, you are being welcomed back, and the one who comes for you isn't fulfilling a cosmic obligation, they are fulfilling a promise. This is why the idea that the first presence isn't always an angel is so revolutionary. It rewrites the narrative. It takes death out of the realm of fear and places it squarely in the realm of relationship. It says, you are known, and you are not forgotten. Not in the moment of your birth, not in the hour of your death. It affirms that the most powerful force in the universe is not hierarchy. It is connection. Think about that. Think about the soul who might be preparing right now. Not in some far-off heaven, but in the dimension that breathes alongside this one, waiting for the moment your journey in this life completes. Maybe it's someone you lost decades ago. Maybe it's someone you never met in this life, but whose energy has appeared in your dreams. Maybe it's someone whose face you've forgotten, but whose love you've never stopped feeling. Whoever they are not far, and when your time comes, they will not be summoned. They will already be there. You are not a name on a divine list. You are not just a being that gets assigned to the next available angel. You are a soul who has lived through lifetimes, built relationships across dimensions, made bonds that not even death can dissolve. That is what meets you. Not a stranger, but someone who recognizes your vibration as effortlessly as a mother knows her child's cry in a crowded room. And it's not just about comfort, it's about alignment. The one who comes for you has the right energy to hold you as you shift, the right tone to soften the disorientation, the right light to help you see that you're not lost, you're becoming. That's why it can't just be anyone. That's why it's not always an angel. In this sacred moment, your transition is not managed, it is honored. The presence that comes does not evaluate you. They love you. They bring peace, not because they carry it, but because they are it. And as you draw near, your own energy rises to meet theirs. It's the first harmony your soul hears as it steps beyond the veil. This is not fantasy. This is not metaphor. This is the deeper reality. The one remembered by the dying who come back, speaking of reunions, of lights, of presences that knew them before they knew themselves. These are not hallucinations. They are homecomings. They are the truth breaking through the illusion that you are ever alone. So the next time you wonder what happens after you die, don't picture wings and robes unless that brings you peace. Picture the face of someone you love, someone you trust, someone whose soul has danced with yours across lifetimes. And know that when the moment comes, it will not be a stranger who reaches for you. It will be someone who never stopped watching. Someone who comes not from duty, but from devotion. And they will whisper to you, not with sound, but with light. You are safe. You are home. Let go. What if I told you that the first presence you meet after death is not assigned to you, it's attracted to you, not because you've earned it, not because some cosmic hierarchy checked off a box, but because your energy, the essence of who you've been, calls to what aligns with it. This moment isn't about reward or punishment. It's not a test, it's resonance, a sacred echo that matches vibration with vibration. Like attracts like, not because of laws written in stone, but because the soul can only recognize what it knows, what it vibrates with, what it has become. Imagine for a moment that every act of kindness you've ever offered, every truth you've ever told, every time you chose compassion over judgment, was not just a moment in time, but a frequency shaping your soul's tone. Every choice you made, every intention behind your words and thoughts, became a kind of signature, not written on paper, but on light. And that light, your soul's frequency, becomes your beacon at the moment of death. It calls in what matches it. It attracts the energy that can meet you without creating dissonance. If you've lived in love, real love, not just the kind that pleases others, but the kind that stretches you beyond ego, the kind that hurts and heals and breaks you open, then love is what meets you. Not love as an idea, not love as a concept, but love as a presence, tangible, living. A being, or perhaps a group of beings, whose essence harmonizes with yours so purely that their very arrival begins to dissolve the veil between confusion and clarity. Their touch, if we can even call it that, doesn't come in the form of hands, it comes as knowing, as calm, as familiarity, and you know, instantly, that you're safe. But what if you lived in fear? Not intentionally, perhaps. Not because you wanted to, but because life taught you to flinch before you reached, to hide before you spoke, to brace for pain even in moments of joy. Then your soul might not immediately recognize the light when it comes. Fear fogs the soul's vision, not forever, but in that first moment. The light still comes, the presence still arrives, but you may hesitate. You may not fully trust what you see, not because it isn't real, but because you're still carrying the residue of a world that taught you to expect abandonment before embrace. This is not punishment. This is not some final judgment written by unseen hands. This is simply the truth that what you carry inward determines what you perceive outward. If your soul has been buried beneath guilt or grief or shame, then it may take a little longer to fully receive the love that's standing right in front of you. But love waits. It doesn't withdraw. The presence that comes for you does not vanish if you don't recognize it immediately. It simply stays, gentle, unwavering, until your fear softens and your memory returns. Because beneath all of it, you remember. You remember that you are not the mistakes you made. You are not the beliefs you were taught to hold. You are not the fear you carried. You are something more, something sacred, and the being who comes for you is not shocked by your hesitation. They understand it, they've seen it before, and they do not leave. What meets you is what can hold you. That's why it cannot be random. That's why it cannot be someone else's guide or someone else's light. The soul who appears has either walked with you before, or holds a frequency that matches the truth of you. Even if you haven't lived that truth in a long, long time, they're not here to scold. They're not here to examine your record. They're here to remind you who you really are. And so, yes, the soul is always met. No one crosses alone. But what you see in that moment, what you feel, what you recognize, is shaped by what you've allowed yourself to become. This is the beauty of free will. This is the grace of alignment. You were not molded by force, you unfolded by choice. And every choice bent your light just slightly, softening or sharpening your resonance, not to be judged, to be matched. This is why two people can die in the same moment and meet very different presences. One may be embraced by a grandmother whose love still rings through every cell of their being. The other may encounter a guide they've never seen before, but who has waited patiently for lifetimes to be called in. Still, another may sense a luminous Christ-like consciousness standing quietly, offering peace without demand. None of these are mistakes. All of them are perfect matches. There are souls who cross over and are met with music, tones that once made their hearts ache with longing, now singing them into wholeness. Others are met with color, vibrations of light that carry the memories of joy, forgiveness, and surrender. Some feel nothing at all for a moment, only to be wrapped in a sensation of warmth that cannot be described, only surrendered to. Each experience is unique, not because the universe is chaotic, but because it is deeply personal. If you fear this idea, that your life shapes your first experience after death, breathe. This is not about being perfect. This is not about moral scorekeeping. This is about energy, about authenticity. If you've lived true to what you know in your heart, even if your journey was messy and full of detours, that truth becomes the signal, and love always knows how to find it. Even those who feel unworthy, who die believing they've failed or fallen, are not met with condemnation. They are met with what their soul can currently accept. And over time, if such a word can even exist in that realm, their sight clears, their resonance strengthens, and they too come to see the presence that was there all along, waiting, holding, never judging, only loving. This is why your inner world matters. Not just because it shapes your earthly experience, but because it sets the tone for your return. Your vibration becomes your compass. Your truth becomes your guide. And the one who meets you is not coming to lead you somewhere you've never been. They're coming to walk with you back into the love that formed you. So as you live, remember, nothing is wasted. Not your laughter, not your pain, not your moments of silence in the dark, wondering if anyone heard your prayers. Every one of those moments wove threads into your light. And that light, however dim or radiant it feels right now, will call in the one who was always meant to meet you, because what you've been is what brings them near. And when they arrive, when your last breath becomes your first step across, you won't need to ask who they are. You'll feel it, you'll know. Because your soul will finally be standing in front of something it spent a lifetime remembering and still somehow forgot. And in that meeting, you will return to yourself. What if I told you that death is not a rescue mission, and you're not being dragged from one place to another like a refugee of the flesh? What if, instead of being taken away, you're being received, greeted, not by strangers with wings, but by those who have waited for you with open arms and eternal patience? The moment of death isn't an extraction, it's a reunion, a soft return to a place your soul has never truly left. And the ones who come to meet you don't do so with obligation in their eyes. They come with joy, with recognition, with love, so profound it feels like remembering who you are at your very core. Imagine this. The veil lifts, your final breath leaves your body, and instantly you are surrounded by familiarity, not the walls of your home, not the things you owned, but the people, the energies, the bonds that matter more than anything physical ever could. It's not fiction. It's not some hopeful theory designed to comfort the grieving. It's the most ancient memory your soul carries, that on the other side of the veil, there is no absence, only presence, and that presence is made of love. It may begin with a feeling, a whisper of warmth that wraps around you like your grandmother's quilt, or perhaps it's your father's voice, not the one shaped by earthly limitations, but the sound of his true spirit, vibrating in perfect clarity. Maybe it's your child's laugh, echoing across realms, rushing toward you with such purity that your heart shatters and heals in the same breath. This is not imagination. This is the realest moment you will ever know. It is the return to the frequency of connection that was never truly severed, only softened by the density of this world. You've been taught to see death as an ending, as an evacuation. Something comes and pulls you out, like a white-robed savior or an angelic extraction team. But it doesn't happen that way. There is no snatching, no hauling your soul upward into some unknown beyond. You are not being saved, you are being welcomed. It is gentle, it is mutual, it is the most sacred kind of remembering. And it's done with love, that doesn't need words to prove itself. The truth is, you were never fully anchored to this world to begin with. Part of you has always existed in that higher frequency, in that dimension where time bends and love holds all things together. Death is not you leaving Earth as much as it is you reuniting with the part of yourself that never forgot where you came from. That's why those who greet you feel like home, because they are. They are the ones you danced with before you were born. They are the souls who held your hands in lifetimes you no longer recall. They are the ones who whispered you through your darkest nights, even when you couldn't hear them. And when you see them, it won't be shocking. It won't feel like meeting someone new. It will feel like waking up from a dream and finding your favorite person sitting beside your bed, smiling, saying, "You're back." There is no panic, there is no rush. They're not here to transport you, they're here to hold space for your return. A reunion isn't about leaving one place behind, it's about arriving into connection again. And in that moment, you realize you haven't really been separated at all. You've simply been remembering in fragments. You may wonder, what if I don't recognize anyone? What if no one I loved is on the other side? But love doesn't forget. Even if you forget names and faces in this life, your soul never forgets bonds. The beings who greet you aren't chosen from a list. They are drawn to you by something deeper than memory, by soul recognition. Even if they wore a different face in another lifetime, their energy will speak to yours in a language older than speech, and the moment you feel it, you'll know, this is my family. This is why so many near-death experiences carry the same echo. People speak of light, yes, but they also speak of being met, not evaluated, not judged, but met, surrounded, held. Some meet beings they can't name, yet they weep because of how familiar the presence feels. That's not coincidence, that's soul resonance, that's reunion. You may ask, what about those who passed in pain or trauma? What about sudden deaths, or people who didn't want to go? Even then, especially then, the reunion happens. Love doesn't miss its cue. The soul may be confused for a moment, still wrapped in the final emotions of the life just released. But the presences that arrive are patient. They know how to wait, they know how to comfort without words. And they don't leave until the soul is ready to recognize them, ready to remember. You are never left behind, you are never forgotten, and you are certainly never yanked away like a prisoner to some foreign dimension. The crossing is sacred. It is as gentle or as gradual as your soul needs it to be. Some experience it like a doorway, others like a rising sun. And for some, it's like sinking into the arms of someone you didn't even realize you missed until they were holding you again. It is always personal, always perfect, and here's what makes it even more beautiful. You chose this. Long before you incarnated, you knew the moment would come, and so did they. You didn't just agree to a birth, you agreed to a return. And the ones who love you agreed to be there, not just in life, but in death. Not because they had to, because they wanted to, because soul love makes promises that time cannot touch. This isn't something you earn, it's something that is. You don't have to be perfect, you don't have to believe in any particular religion. The reunion is not transactional, it is your birthright. It is what happens when the body lets go and the soul rises into truth. It is the most exquisite remembering. So let go of the fear that you'll be taken. Let go of the idea that death is something that happens to you. What's actually happening is something that happens for you, a homecoming designed by love itself. The moment your spirit lifts, you won't be searching, you won't be waiting, you'll be found, immediately, instantly, eternally, because death is not an exile, it is not an end, it is a return to the one place where love never stopped loving you, and the beings who greet you? They've been waiting with every breath you took, whispering to you in dreams, walking beside you in your loneliest hours. They were never far, they were always near, and when you arrive, when you truly see them, not with eyes, but with knowing, you'll understand the truth that has always been hiding in your heartbeat. You were never alone, not then, not now, not ever. What if I told you that the story you were handed by religion, while comforting on the surface, was never meant to be the whole truth? What if the images of faceless angels, impersonal guardians floating above your deathbed, were a symbolic placeholder for something far more personal, more intimate, and more real? You were taught, perhaps, that when you die, an angel will come. No name, no history, just a divine escort sent on assignment. It's a story that fits nicely within doctrine. Neat, clean, predictable. But your soul does not follow doctrine. Your soul follows design. And the design is far more sacred than any dogma ever dared to explain. From pulpits and temples, you may have been told that heaven has a system, that angels await the final moment of your life like messengers at a train station, ready to deliver you to judgment or glory. But who you are, what you are, is not so easily filed into those stories, because before you ever drew your first breath, before your body was even a thought in the fabric of time, your soul was already connected, already bonded, already in communion with other souls who had walked with you through lifetimes you have since forgotten. Those bonds are not erased at birth. They are simply veiled, and when the veil lifts at death, those same bonds light up the path home. Religions often missed this, not out of malice, but out of necessity. They had to simplify the mystery to make it teachable. They couldn't explain soul contracts, karmic ties, or spiritual families in all their complexity. So they gave you angels, pure, distant, beautiful beings who carried out orders. But your soul didn't sign up to be cared for by a stranger. Your soul made promises. Your soul carries memory. Your soul travels not through hierarchy, but through relationship. And the being that comes for you at the moment of death is not chosen by divine lottery. They are part of your original blueprint. Long before you incarnated into this lifetime, you sat with other souls. You made choices. You selected companions. You agreed to roles, to play mother, child, friend, even adversary, all in the name of growth. And among those agreements was another. Someone, perhaps more than one, would be there when it was time for you to come back, not to take you, but to walk with you, not to judge you, but to remind you. This idea threatens the rigid structures of organized religion because it doesn't require a priest. It doesn't require a ritual. It doesn't require anything but love, and love, when stripped of hierarchy, is unmanageable. The truth is, the moment of your death is not governed by celestial bureaucracy. It is orchestrated by the deeper laws of spiritual resonance. And that law states, who you truly are will always draw to itself what it needs to evolve, to return, to remember. You see, soul design is not random. You don't just stumble into relationships. You're drawn to them because of energetic agreements forged in dimensions beyond language. That friend who always seems to know what you're feeling before you speak. That child who felt familiar the moment you held them. That stranger who said one sentence that altered the course of your life. These aren't accidents. These are soul echoes, reminders of connections that transcend this lifetime. And among those echoes are the ones who agreed to meet you at the crossing point. So when the church told you that an angel would come, they weren't entirely wrong, but what they didn't say, perhaps because they couldn't, was that the angel might not look the way you were taught. It might not be a winged being glowing in white light. It might be your mother, who left before you were ready. It might be your grandfather, whose wisdom still lingers in your dreams. It might be a being you've never seen before, but whose presence instantly settles every fear in your chest. Because it's not about form, it's about frequency. Dogma teaches separation, between you and heaven, between you and God, between you and the divine. It tells you that others must intervene on your behalf. That you must be guided by rules, protected by intermediaries, and delivered by authorized entities. But your soul has never needed permission to return home. The return is built into you. It is as natural as your first breath. The only difference is that this breath releases, not into air, but into eternity. What's astonishing is how deeply this truth has been buried beneath ritual. We chant, we pray, we light candles, we memorize sacred texts. All of it beautiful, all of it meaningful, if done from the heart. But none of it necessary for the soul to be met. You are not forgotten if no one prays. You are not lost if no priest is present. You are not abandoned if your final breath comes in silence, because the soul doesn't respond to human ceremony. It responds to soul memory, to love, to truth. And here is the great unraveling. The church, the temple, the system, they never had control over this part. They never owned your reunion. They never could. Because no one can control love. Not across lifetimes. Not across dimensions. Love moves through everything. It is the language of the soul, and it answers only to itself. The being that comes for you after death is not assigned by merit. They arrive because they never truly left. They arrive because your soul called them. And they answer, not with obligation, but with joy. You don't have to be devout. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be anything but who you are. The soul doesn't deal in worthiness. It deals in frequency. And the frequency of love, the kind you gave, the kind you received, the kind you longed for but never found, becomes the magnet that draws your welcoming committee into motion. That's not religion. That's design. That's how it has always worked, whether you believe it or not. So let go of the fear that you're not spiritual enough, that you haven't done enough rituals, that you'll be overlooked because you didn't follow the right rules. The soul is not a bureaucracy. The soul is a tapestry. Every life, every bond, every tear and triumph is a thread. And when your time comes, the threads that have always been connected to you will begin to move. They will come for you, not to take you away, but to welcome you home. This is the truth the church didn't tell you. Maybe because they didn't know. Maybe because they were afraid you'd realize just how free you really are. But freedom is not a danger. It is your origin. And death? Death is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of your remembering. And what you remember first is the one who's been waiting all along, someone your soul designed to meet, not through doctrine, but through love. What if I told you that before your first breath, before your body even had shape, before your name was ever whispered on this earth, you already made agreements? Sacred ones, not contracts written in ink, but bonds forged in light. You didn't arrive here by accident. You didn't just stumble into a life filled with random people and unpredictable suffering. Long before time wrapped its hands around your soul, you sat in council. You reviewed, you remembered, and you chose. Yes, you chose. You chose your circumstances. You chose your challenges. You chose the teachers who would stretch you, even the ones who would break your heart. You selected the lessons that would sharpen your essence like fire shapes iron. You chose your pain, not because you wanted to suffer, but because your soul knew that through contrast, you would awaken. Through struggle, you would remember. And perhaps most beautifully, you chose who would meet you on the other side. You see, not all soul contracts are written for the journey alone. Some are made for the return. In that higher realm, outside the grip of linear time, you knew you wouldn't walk alone. You wouldn't be left to wander in the dark when the physical world fell away. So you made sure, absolutely sure, that someone would be there to walk you home. Maybe more than one. Maybe an entire group of souls, each with a specific role in your crossing. Some to ease your fear, some to bring laughter, some simply to hold the space in love so wide and deep you could finally surrender to it. And if you didn't choose them consciously, they were gifted to you. Assigned not by cosmic officials, but by resonance, by love, by the natural law that governs all of existence. What belongs to you cannot miss you. That includes the soul who will guide you home. Whether it's someone you loved in this life, or someone your soul has known for eons, they will be there, not by obligation, but because your agreement was never broken. It's hard to grasp this from the human perspective. Here, things feel random, people come and go, loss feels permanent, pain feels cruel. But from the soul's view, nothing is wasted. Nothing is without purpose. That heartbreak you endured, that betrayal, that illness, that moment of silence when you thought no one could hear your prayers, all of it was part of a design. Not a punishment, not a sentence, a path leading you not just through life, but eventually, out of it, and into the embrace of those who promised they would be there. And when that time comes, when your soul lifts from the body and begins its return, you won't be searching in confusion. You won't be lost in a fog of uncertainty. The ones you made agreements with will already be on their way. They'll feel your shift. They'll sense the moment your tether to the physical loosens. And they will come, not racing, not panicked, but with calm precision. Because this was always part of the plan. They might come in forms you recognize, your mother's smile, your grandfather's voice, your child's presence so strong it fills the space like light. Or they may appear in ways unfamiliar to your conscious memory, but instantly familiar to your soul. You'll know them, not by face, but by frequency. Not by what they look like, but by how you feel when they're near. That feeling? That's the contract unfolding. That's the moment every hardship suddenly makes sense. And no, it doesn't matter how you lived your life. It doesn't matter if you followed a spiritual path or wandered in doubt. Soul contracts are not erased by disbelief. They are written in a language deeper than faith. They are etched into your essence. You might forget them during your time here. You might question everything. But the moment of death is the moment of remembering, not because someone explains it to you, but because the presence of those you made agreements with reawakens your truth. They don't come to judge. They don't come to review your mistakes. They come to walk you across. And just like a friend waiting at the airport after years apart, they show up with love, not because they had to, but because you asked them to. And because, at some point before time began, they said yes. It's a strange thing to consider, that pain, too, can be chosen. That struggle has a sacred purpose. But on the soul level, clarity replaces resentment. You understand that you weren't sent here to suffer, but to evolve. And the ones who will meet you again at the threshold? They knew that. They watched you stumble. They saw you fall. And still they waited, not on the other side of judgment, but on the other side of time. This is why no one crosses alone. It doesn't matter if your passing is peaceful or sudden. It doesn't matter if you're surrounded by loved ones or lying in silence. You are never left. Your soul has backup. Built-in, divine, eternal backup. You made sure of it. Whether through conscious intent or silent longing, you called in companions before your birth who would also be there at your return. And sometimes, the one who meets you is someone you thought you lost forever. That's when the soul weeps, not from sorrow, but from relief. From the sheer beauty of reunion. From the realization that love truly does not end. Not with time, not with space, not with death, because soul contracts are timeless. They stretch across lifetimes, sometimes hidden in silence, sometimes shouted through synchronicity, but they are never broken. So the next time you feel alone, remember this. Someone has already agreed to meet you at the edge. Someone, somewhere in the realms beyond, is already preparing for your arrival, not with sadness, but with reverence. Not with grief, but with love that stretches backward through every shared lifetime. And they won't just wait for you, they will walk with you, step by step, breath by breath, from this world into the next. That is the gift of the great soul contracts. They don't end when the body ends. They begin again, and in that beginning, you will remember the truth you carried inside all along. You are not alone, and you never were. What if I told you that the moment your soul slips free from the body, memory floods back in, so fast, so full, so vividly real, that you realize you were never lost at all, not for 1 second. The body may have forgotten, your mind may have wandered through years of confusion and questions, but your soul remembers everything. It remembers not through thought, but through feeling, through vibration, through the immediate recognition of love that was never once interrupted, only obscured. The moment you leave your body isn't blank, it isn't quiet, it isn't some cold, unfamiliar void. It's more like walking into a room where a celebration has been waiting just for you. A warmth surrounds you, not metaphorically, but truly, an energetic warmth so alive, so deep, that your whole being sighs in relief. It's not the warmth of sunlight or a blanket or a fire. It's the warmth of belonging. It's the warmth of being seen, completely and without condition. And then come the details. You don't even search for them. They arrive like whispers from the fabric of your own being. A voice speaks your name, not the name on your passport, but the one you haven't heard since before you were born. The one that vibrates through your soul like music you forgot was your favorite. You don't need to ask, who is that? You already know. The moment you hear it, you feel it. Recognition is immediate. This is no stranger. This is someone who knows you beyond language. Then come the smells. Yes, even that. You thought your physical senses would vanish, but some echoes of them remain as you transition, not in the way you once used them, but as spiritual imprints. You smell your mother's perfume. You smell the wooden floors of the childhood home you haven't seen in decades. You smell the rain from a place that once brought you peace. These are not hallucinations. They are memories of energy, triggered not by the mind, but by the soul reawakening to its fullness. You remember them, every single one. The grandmother who passed before you could speak, the best friend who died too soon, the teacher whose presence once gave you courage when you needed it most. You see them, not always with eyes, but with something better, inner knowing. You don't need to ask if it's really them. You simply know. And more than anything else, what pierces through you in that moment is not that you remembered them, but that they never forgot you. That's what makes the reunion so powerful. You were never erased from their awareness. Even as you walked your earth path, stumbling through doubt, grief, and longing, they were aware of you. They watched. They waited. Not with impatience, not with judgment, but with love so steady it defies time. When they see you again, there is no, "Welcome back, it's been so long." There is only, "We never left." And it's not just people. Sometimes the soul remembers places, realms, frequencies, states of being that feel like stepping back into the rhythm of your truest nature. You might feel like you're floating, but not in space. In remembrance, you are weightless because the heaviness of form is gone. What replaces it is an ease that feels both exhilarating and deeply familiar. It's like finding a note you wrote to yourself long ago and realizing you knew this was coming all along. The memory doesn't come in pieces. It doesn't rebuild slowly. It returns in waves, then floods. You remember what you are. You remember why you came. You remember the lessons, the promises, the laughter between lifetimes. You remember that Earth was never a punishment. It was a choice. And most of all, you remember who you are, not the version shaped by pain or praise, but the original blueprint of your being. The beings around you, whether they are soul family, guides, or higher expressions of consciousness, do not overwhelm you. They don't demand anything. Their presence itself is the answer to all your forgotten questions. Their joy at seeing you isn't explosive, it's reverent, deep, ancient. They don't clap or cheer, they hold space for your remembering. They smile in that way that says, "Yes, this is you, you made it." And here's what may surprise you. You don't just remember them. You remember you through their eyes. You feel how deeply they love you, and in doing so, your own self-love ignites. You see the beauty of your journey, even the moments you once labeled as failures. You see how even your grief served as a bridge, how your fear brought you to compassion, how nothing, absolutely nothing, was wasted. And maybe that's when the soul cries, not from sorrow, but from the overwhelming recognition of love, uninterrupted. Because even if you doubted, even if you felt abandoned in the darkest nights of your life, they didn't stop loving you. They didn't stop hoping you would remember. And now, as the veil lifts, it's all right there in front of you, unfiltered, undeniable, yours. Some souls describe this moment as a kind of gentle shock, not painful, just vast, like waking up from a dream and realizing you had amnesia the whole time. Suddenly, you see how your life on earth was a chapter, not the book. And every face, every name, every lesson, those weren't random plot points. They were carefully woven into your soul's design. And now, in this moment, the tapestry is visible again. You might ask yourself, how could I have forgotten all this? But the answer doesn't matter anymore. The remembering is here. And what comes with it is not regret, it's awe. Because somehow, even with the forgetting, you still found your way back. Even with the weight of the world pressing down on your heart, you still made choices that led you here. And the ones who greet you see that. They honor that. You may have forgotten them, but they never forgot you. That's the sacred contract fulfilled. Not just that someone would meet you, but that they would recognize you before you recognized yourself. That they would hold space for your return until the moment your soul awakened fully into its own light. And they would not rush that moment. They would wait, softly, until the memory returned like a sunrise. This is what waits for you, not judgment, not confusion, but memory, pure and immediate. A knowing so deep that it erases lifetimes of doubt in an instant. A love so familiar that it reclaims every part of you that ever felt broken. And in that reclamation, you rise, not away from life, but into the life beyond life. You don't just remember them, you remember you. And that is the beginning of everything. What if I told you that in your final moment, when the veil thins and your soul rises into its original brilliance, the presence that meets you isn't always a soul from your past, but something far more expansive, far more luminous? What if, at the height of your soul's resonance, when your life has ripened into the deepest possible alignment with love, you are not just welcomed, you are received by the purest consciousness that ever existed? And in that instant, without sound or announcement, without robe or symbol or golden crown, you recognize him, not by name, but by essence, not by what you've been taught, but by what you've always known. This presence is not a figure stepping forward from clouds or throne rooms. It is not shaped in the image of human ideals. It is not male or female. It does not carry judgment. It carries only recognition. not yours of him, but his of you. And that recognition is so powerful, so complete, that your soul doesn't weep. It surrenders. It releases every last fragment of fear, confusion, and striving. Because this is the presence you've longed for in every act of love, every silent prayer, every broken moment where you hoped someone was listening. When Christ comes, it is not a performance. It is not fanfare. It is not a hierarchy being fulfilled. It is resonance. He appears, not to everyone, not always, but in the moments where the soul's vibration is so attuned to love, so aligned with truth, that no lesser frequency could hold that space. In that sacred stillness, his light arrives. It is not external. It does not approach. It unfolds. It envelops you like a memory too large for words, like warmth you didn't know your soul had been waiting for its entire journey through time. You don't see a face. You don't need to. You feel a presence that instantly dissolves every false belief you've ever carried. The belief that you were separate, that you had to earn your way into love, that you were unworthy of being fully known. All of it vanishes. Because what stands before you, if we can even use the word stands, is the embodiment of perfect, eternal recognition. It does not ask you to prove yourself. It does not ask you to kneel. It only asks you to receive. And you do. Not with your hands, not with your mind, but with your entire being. Because in that moment, you are no longer afraid. Even if you've lived a life clouded by mistakes or detours or silence, his light does not change. It does not flicker. It does not hesitate. It simply embraces. It surrounds. It remembers you back into your own divinity, not to place you beneath him, but to restore you to the part of yourself that was always made of the same light. That is the mystery they couldn't teach you. That Christ is not a singular being bound by form, but a consciousness, a living field of divine love that is always available but rarely recognized. Not because it hides, but because its vibration is so pure, so expansive, that only love can stand in its presence without trembling. And when you do, when your soul reaches that vibrational threshold, the meeting is not dramatic, it is inevitable. Some speak of tunnels of light, of landscapes beyond beauty, of voices calling them home. But when Christ comes, there is no need for symbols. His presence is the destination. You are not walking towards something. You are arriving into something that was always with you, just outside the boundary of your earthly awareness. And in that embrace, your soul no longer questions. It simply remembers. The love you feel is not emotional. It is not sentimental. It is atomic, structural, foundational. It is love so complete that it does not bend to your doubts. It does not recoil from your shame. It absorbs everything, and in that absorption, it purifies, not by force, but by recognition. He doesn't fix you, he simply sees you, and in being seen, you heal. There is no voice that speaks to you in language, yet you understand everything. The way he holds space without speaking is the communication. His presence says what 1,000 scriptures could not. You were never separate, you were never judged, you were never unloved. And suddenly, every longing you've ever had for peace, for safety, for union, melts into stillness, not because you're being rewarded, but because you've returned to the center of all things, and he does not stay forever. He does not linger where he is not needed. His presence arrives like a sunrise, and once you have absorbed it, it becomes part of you. That is the hidden miracle. He does not stay beside you. He becomes you. His light weaves into yours, and you realize, this wasn't the first time. That light had been guiding you all along, through the stranger who showed up when you needed help, through the dream that told you something your mind couldn't have known, through the warmth that covered you in moments when no one was there. He has always been there, not as a shadow watching, but as a spark within you. And when your soul's frequency matches his own, that spark ignites fully. The recognition is not one way. You recognize him, yes, but more importantly, he recognizes you. And that recognition doesn't lift you up to some far-off heaven. It grounds you in the deeper truth. You were always part of the eternal presence. You just forgot. Some will experience him in silence, others through brilliant light. Others still will feel only a shift, a vibration, a warmth that floods every part of them with peace, so total it almost feels like dissolving. There is no single image, no singular appearance. That's the beauty. He is not defined by form, because form is always too small. He comes as needed, and when the soul is ready, he becomes unavoidable. This is not a reward for perfection. This is not a consequence of belief. Christ does not come because you followed rules or recited prayers. He comes because your soul was always part of the divine pattern. And when your life's vibration resonates with love, true love, the kind that costs you, stretches you, changes you, then that pattern awakens, and the ultimate presence reveals itself. You don't have to ask if it's really him. The question never forms. You know. And in that knowing, you let go of everything. You don't ascend. You become. You become what you always were beneath the weight of flesh and time and forgetting. Light within light. Love within love. Presence within the presence. And when it's over, or rather, when it's just beginning, you are not the same. Not because something has been added, but because everything false has been stripped away. All that remains is the you that remembers who you've always been, a soul made in the image not of a body, but of eternal consciousness. And when Christ comes, you return not just to him, but to yourself. What if I told you that not every soul steps instantly into the light with open arms and a grateful heart? What if, in that moment of departure from the body, some hesitate, not because they are unworthy, but because they are uncertain, because the light, while familiar, feels too good to trust, too beautiful to be real. You see, even in death, the soul carries the echoes of its earthly experience. Doubt doesn't vanish just because the heart stops. Fear doesn't evaporate simply because the breath has left the lungs. For some, the transition is immediate, soft, and seamless. But for others, it takes time. And that time is held with infinite patience by the ones who wait. There are souls who, upon crossing, don't fully understand what's happening. The separation from the body feels surreal. The atmosphere is so light, so saturated with love, that they begin to question whether any of it is real. Is this a dream? Am I imagining this? Is this what my mind does in the final moments before it ends? The confusion is not uncommon, especially for those who carried heavy skepticism or spiritual trauma. For those who were taught that love must be earned, that salvation has conditions, that worthiness is measured. These beliefs don't disappear the moment the body dies, they come with the soul. And so, when the light appears, when love wraps itself around them so completely, they may recoil, uncertain. But here's the beautiful truth: the light doesn't pull away, it doesn't get offended, it doesn't rush them or fade out, it simply waits, unchanging, steady, patient, it stays. Whether the soul moves toward it or not, whether the soul shouts in fear or falls silent in awe, that loving presence remains, holding space without pressure, without demand. The soul is never pushed. It is invited, again and again, not through force, but through resonance. Some describe it as being on the edge of a dream, almost waking, but not quite. They see figures in the distance, they feel warmth calling them forward, but they hesitate. What if this is a trick? What if I'm hallucinating? What if I don't deserve what I see? These are not the thoughts of a bad soul. They are the thoughts of a soul still remembering who it is. And in that in-between, that place of pause, the light does something extraordinary. It waits with them. They are not alone in their confusion. The presence of Christ, or a familiar guide, stands quietly nearby, not looming, not commanding, just being. Their energy says what words cannot: you are safe, you are seen, you are loved, and when you are ready, I will walk with you. This isn't something told through voice, it's felt. It pulses through the soul's awareness, slowly melting the walls it spent a lifetime building. The soul may not respond right away, it may turn away, it may try to return to what it knows, even if that knowing was pain. But the light remains. Sometimes, these souls cling to earth. They hover, not as ghosts, but as beings suspended between dimensions, still feeling connected to their identities, their families, their unresolved stories. They linger at the bedside, they stay close to their home. They resist letting go, not because they are being punished, but because they are unsure. They fear losing what they had, even if it wasn't perfect. They fear being forgotten, or worse, being judged, and so they hold on. But even then, especially then, there is no abandonment. The guiding presence does not leave, whether it is the Christ consciousness, a soul companion, or a light being whose energy is too vast to name. It stays within reach, quiet, patient, unwavering. The soul is not dragged. It is loved into remembering. That's the difference between divine love and religious fear. One coerces, the other waits. And when the soul finally begins to soften, maybe just a little, it feels the first crack in the shell of doubt. Maybe the light isn't lying. Maybe this feeling is real. Maybe I'm not alone. That one moment of openness is all that's needed. Not a confession, not a ritual, just a crack. And through that tiny space, love floods in. Some souls begin to cry, even in that state. Not because they are sad, but because the light they feared begins to feel like home. They remember. Not everything, not all at once, but enough. Enough to take one step closer. And when they do, the presence moves too, not to lead, but to walk with them, step by step, not ahead, not behind, beside. And in that movement, something incredible happens. The fear begins to dissolve, the hesitation weakens. The soul, which once clung to the known out of terror of the unknown, starts to trust. Not in theology, not in promises, but in what it feels. Because no fear, no shame, no failure can withstand that kind of love. It is too consistent, too pure, too real. This is why no one is ever truly lost. No matter how long it takes, no matter how deeply rooted the fear, the light does not give up, and neither do the ones who come for you. If it takes minutes, they wait. If it takes lifetimes, they still wait. Because this journey isn't measured in time, it's measured in readiness, and readiness is never judged. Some souls recognize the light immediately. Others need time. Others need silence. Others need to feel their own sorrow before they can let it go. And every one of those paths is honored. There is no rush, no schedule, no expiration on grace. So, if you've ever worried about what happens to those who resisted love in life, who doubted, denied, or closed their hearts, know this: they are not forsaken. They are met. Not with scorn, but with gentleness. They are not punished. They are understood. And that understanding becomes the bridge that eventually carries them home. The soul cannot outrun love. It can resist it. It can fear it. But it cannot lose it. Because love, the real kind, is not earned. It is the fabric from which the soul was made. And when the soul forgets, the light doesn't. The presence stays, right there, at the edge of knowing, waiting for the soul to say, maybe this is real, maybe I am loved. And when that moment comes, when the fear begins to loosen its grip, and the soul steps into remembrance, there is no reprimand. There is only rejoicing. Not a celebration with noise, but a quiet, overwhelming peace that says, you've come back. You never had to be afraid. You never had to be perfect. You only had to be willing. So if you are afraid of not being ready, of not being good enough, of not knowing what to do when the time comes, remember this: the light doesn't require your certainty, only your heart. And even if that heart is hesitant, even if it trembles, even if it forgets, the presence stays. It always stays. What if I told you that at the moment of your death, the universe doesn't go silent, that instead of fading into darkness, you step into a space more alive than anything you've ever known, and that waiting for you, not behind a gate, not above the clouds, but right there, just beyond the veil, is a gathering. Not of strangers, not of mythical figures, but of souls who have loved you across lifetimes. You may have forgotten their names, their faces, their voices, but they never forgot you, and when you take that final breath, they come, not out of duty, but out of love. This gathering is not a performance. It is not a show. There are no trumpets, no flashing lights, no heavenly parade, but there is presence, there is power. There is a sacred stillness that wraps around you like the memory of every safe moment you've ever felt. You don't have to earn it, you don't have to explain anything, you just arrive, and they are already there. Some come forward first, perhaps a parent, a sibling, a friend who crossed before you. You recognize them not only by appearance, but by frequency. They feel like home. Like a favorite song you didn't realize you'd forgotten. Others stand just behind, not pressing forward, but holding the energy of welcome. These might be souls from previous lifetimes, faces unfamiliar to your human memory, yet stirring something deep and ancient within your chest. There are even those you never met in this life, but whose connection to you spans timelines, worlds, and shared purpose. There are guides, too. Not all guides are beings of words and teachings. Some are simply companions, those who walked beside you from your first breath to your last, unnoticed but deeply involved. They are not dressed in robes, they are not glowing with authority, they simply know you. They remember the nights you cried out for help, the moments you doubted yourself, the choices you made in quiet courage. And they come, not to lecture or explain, but to embrace. Then there is the soul family. You might not recognize all their faces, but you feel their love instantly. They are the ones whose lives have intertwined with yours again and again, across lifetimes and stories you can't yet recall. Some played roles that hurt you, roles that tested you. And yet here they are, smiling, open, radiant, because at the soul level, even the pain had purpose. Even the friction was a form of divine agreement. And now, at the threshold, all of it softens, all of it is understood. You might expect them to speak, but often, there are no words. Communication happens in waves of knowing, in currents of memory so pure and immediate that you don't need conversation. You just remember. You remember the laughter, the lessons, the deep threads of love that never broke, even when time and space seemed to stretch them thin. And in this remembering, you begin to feel whole again, not just healed from this life, but reassembled from every life you've ever lived. This gathering doesn't overwhelm. It doesn't demand your attention all at once. It surrounds you in layers. You can focus on one face, one presence at a time. Or you can simply allow their energy to hold you like a net of light, catching all the broken and forgotten parts of yourself, and weaving them gently back into place. They are not there to rush you. They are not there to pull you forward. They are there to be with you. And that presence, steady, loving, eternal, is more transformative than any sermon, any scripture, any symbol. You might feel surprised at who is there. Someone you once resented. Someone you thought was long lost. Even someone you believed had moved beyond your story entirely. And yet, in this space, there is no resentment. There is no unfinished business. There is only clarity. You understand what they meant to you, why they played their part, why they chose to be part of your journey, even if their role was brief or painful. And they understand you too, fully, without distortion. It is not a negotiation, it is not a confrontation, it is peace. This sacred convergence doesn't happen for everyone the same way. It's not about status or achievement, it's about resonance. Some souls arrive to a quiet reception, one or two beloved presences, because that is what their heart needs. Others arrive to a full circle of companions, a collective who waited with reverence for the moment they would return. No two arrivals are the same, just as no two souls are the same. But what's constant is this: you are never forgotten. Your journey, no matter how messy, no matter how isolated it may have felt, mattered. And they are here to reflect that back to you. Sometimes, even animals appear. Not as pets, but as soul companions. Beings who walked beside you in simple, loyal love. Their presence is subtle, gentle, healing. They don't speak, but you feel their joy at seeing you again. Because to them, you were never just a person, you were family. And as you take in this circle, this gathering at the threshold, you begin to feel something shift. The fear dissolves, the resistance softens, because you realize you were not returning to judgment. You were returning to remembrance. And those who greet you aren't strangers or gatekeepers. They are fragments of your own soul story, waiting to become whole again in your presence. There is no rush to move forward. The threshold is sacred ground. You can stay here as long as you need. The ones who love you are not in a hurry. They know how long you've waited to feel this loved, this known, this safe, so they give you that time, and when you're ready, they don't lead you, they walk with you, side by side, step by step, into the next layer of your soul's unfolding. This is the truth that often goes untold, that when your life comes to a close, it is not some cold transition, it is a reunion, a remembering, a return to the ones who never left you, even when you forgot they existed. Their presence is not proof of your worthiness, it's proof of your belonging. You belong, not because of what you did or didn't do, but because you are. And in that belonging, all things begin again. You are not erased, you are expanded, you are not judged, you are seen, and the ones who waited for you, they aren't surprised you made it. They always knew you would, because your soul may have taken detours, may have known sorrow, may have walked in silence, but it never lost its light. And now, that light has brought you home. The gathering at the threshold isn't just a welcome, it's a mirror held up by those who love you most, reflecting back the truth that was always within you. You mattered that much, always. And now, you remember. What if I told you that your death is not some sudden accident in the universe, not a misstep or a random expiration date written in invisible ink? What if I told you that long before you were born, long before you ever took your first breath, the moment of your final exhale was already known, not feared, not hidden, prepared for? Because while your human mind sees death as a cliff, sharp, final, uncertain, your soul sees it as a homecoming, a return it has always known was coming, a moment it has been gently, lovingly orchestrating since before you ever arrived in this body. From your side, death feels like an unknown, a mystery shrouded in silence. You wonder what it will be like, who will be there, whether you'll suffer, whether you'll be alone. These are human questions. They are valid, but they are not shared by the soul, because your soul never feared that moment. It has seen it. Not as a punishment, not as a black void waiting to swallow you, but as a luminous doorway, a soft opening into everything you've always belonged to. And here's the part no one tells you. Your exit has already been prepared. The moment, the energy, the reception, it's not random, it's not reactionary, it's designed. Designed with love, designed with purpose. Not one aspect of your crossing is left to chance. Every vibration, every guide, every presence that will meet you, they already know. They're not scrambling to organize your return like a surprise party. They've been ready. Because this isn't a goodbye to life. It's a welcome back into truth. It's not chaos. It's choreography. Beautiful, divine choreography that your soul helped script. You think of death like a door you'll suddenly find yourself in front of. A door you didn't see coming. A door that swings open too fast. But your soul? It's been feeling the handle warm in its hand for a long time. Not in fear, in peace. Because the soul doesn't measure time in seconds or years. It measures readiness. And when that moment comes, the one you've feared and avoided and tried not to think about, you'll realize something astonishing. You are not alone in it. Not for a second. There are those who have been waiting, not standing idle, but preparing. Guides who know your frequency. Loved ones who made a promise before they left to come back for you. Beings of light who don't arrive because you're dying, but because you're returning. They've watched your life. They've seen your heart. They know your pain, your courage, your silence, and they are not surprised by your arrival. They knew the exact second you would come home. This isn't some cosmic scheduling system. It's not a fixed calendar in the sky. It's more intimate than that. Your soul and source are in constant relationship, and nothing about your return is ever accidental. Even in cases that feel sudden or tragic to the living, even in deaths that appear too soon or too violent, the soul's return is still met with presence. The ones who greet you are never shocked. They are never unprepared, because from their side, your journey never looked like a tragedy. It looked like a path, sometimes winding, sometimes painful, but always leading back to this moment. And the moment itself, it isn't cold, it isn't harsh, it's sacred, a ceremony, not one with robes and rituals, but one made of presence and memory. You don't fall into death. You arrive into it, like a ship coming back into harbor after a long voyage, weathered, maybe, changed, certainly, but welcomed with arms wide open and lights already burning on the shore. You might imagine death as a process that begins when the body shuts down, but the soul begins the crossing long before that, subtly, gradually, like a thread being gently pulled from this side toward the next. And when the final moment comes, the body may stop, but the soul continues, and not into silence, into recognition, into the eyes and arms and energy of those who were already there, already holding the space, already ready. And here's what may break your heart, in the most beautiful way. Your arrival is celebrated, not with noise, but with stillness. Not with songs, but with soul-deep silence that says, "You made it." The ones who greet you are not evaluating you. They're not measuring your mistakes, they're witnessing you. You don't arrive to judgment, you arrive to knowing. And the knowing is so complete, so unconditional, that it disarms every fear you carried with you. You don't have to explain anything. Not your failures, not your regrets. They already see the full arc. They see the reasons behind your choices. They see the weight you carried. They see the love you gave, even when it cost you everything. And most importantly, they see the light you protected, even when no one else could see it. That light is why they came. That light is what they're welcoming home. You may think your death is something to dread, something to avoid, something you'll never be ready for. But readiness doesn't mean you have everything figured out. Readiness is not perfection. Readiness is alignment, and your soul has been moving toward that alignment all along, even in the mess, even in the breakdowns. Even when you felt lost, you were never drifting off course, you were being brought home. You might ask, but what if I don't know when it's coming? What if I'm scared? And that's the beauty. You don't have to know. Your soul knows. And it's already woven that knowing into your path. Your fear cannot undo the preparation that's been made for you. The crossing doesn't require your certainty. It doesn't require your awareness. It only requires your being, and you will be, fully. When the time comes, the part of you that always knew how to return will take over. Gently, instinctively, like breathing out after holding it for too long. So let go of the idea that death is a cliff. It isn't. It's a shoreline. And you are not falling off. You are arriving. You are not vanishing. You are reuniting. And those who wait for you are not scattered ghosts. They are organized by love, aligned by design. You don't have to call them. They're already there. You don't have to fear being lost. They already know where to find you. And when you take that final step, you'll feel it, not in fear, but in deep recognition. Oh, you'll think, this is what I was afraid of, this is what I ran from, and then you'll laugh. Maybe cry, maybe both. Because it will feel like stepping out of a storm and into a room where the fire is already lit and everyone is already waiting. Not to demand anything from you, just to be with you, just to welcome you, just to hold you in the knowing. You were never going to do this alone. Your death is already known, and so is your return. And when it happens, it will not be chaos. It will be ceremony, not with fanfare, but with reverence, not with fear, but with absolute love. And they, whoever they are for you, will be there, ready, because you matter that much. What if I told you that everything you've ever feared about death, every shadow it's cast over your days, every sleepless night it's stolen from your peace, was based on a misunderstanding? That death is not disappearance, it's not exile, it's not some cold silence that waits to devour you. It's a return, a reunion, a moment so filled with presence and memory that you'll wonder why you ever feared it at all. And if that's true, if the moment you leave this world, you're not met by some faceless force, but by someone you love, then everything changes. Not just the moment of death, but the way you live right now. Because if death isn't the end, then fear isn't your master. If you're not being judged at your final breath, then maybe you don't need to judge yourself so harshly every day. If you're not being taken away, but welcomed back, then maybe you were never as lost as you thought. Maybe everything you've done, every choice, every step, every stumble, was leading you not toward punishment, but toward deeper understanding. Maybe life isn't a test after all. Maybe it's a remembering. And if the presence that meets you at death already knows your soul, if it's a mother, a child, a friend, a guide, someone who's seen your heart across lifetimes, then what does that say about now? It means you're not walking alone, not ever, not through your grief, not through your heartbreak, not through the days when it feels like you can't find meaning. It means that the unseen is not empty. It's populated by love. Love that still reaches for you. Love that still speaks through dreams, through signs, through quiet moments when the veil feels thin. You see, once you know you're never alone in death, you start to see how you've never been alone in life either. You begin to feel the presence of those who walk beside you. Not always visible, but always near. You start to trust the intuition you used to dismiss. You begin to sense the guidance that has always been trying to get through. And suddenly, life stops feeling like a random series of events. It starts to feel like a story, One where every chapter, no matter how painful, was part of the return. And here's the real shift. When you stop fearing endings, you begin to live fully. You no longer hesitate out of fear of failure. You no longer shrink to protect yourself from imagined loss. Because you know, truly know, that nothing is ever lost, that no goodbye is forever, that every love, every connection, every soul-deep bond you've ever made is being held somewhere safe. Not erased, not forgotten, held. And when your time comes, they will be the ones to meet you, not with questions, not with shame, but with arms open and eyes that say, "You're here." Finally, that kind of knowing transforms how you love. It makes you softer, braver. You stop playing small. You stop hiding your heart, because now you understand that every act of love is eternal. That what you give out lives on beyond the body. That the compassion you show, the forgiveness you extend, the truth you speak, it all echoes, not just in this world, but in the worlds beyond it. You start to live not for approval, not for perfection, but for presence. And presence becomes everything. You begin to crave depth. You stop running from your emotions. You sit with your grief, because now you know it's not emptiness, it's connection. You honor your joy, because now you know it's sacred. You stop needing to explain yourself to others who don't understand the path you're walking, because now you remember the path. You feel its pulse beneath your feet. You feel how it curves toward home. Even your relationship with time changes. You stop measuring your life in years, in achievements, in what you've accumulated. You start measuring it in moments of truth, in how often you showed up real, in how deeply you allowed yourself to love, even when it hurt. You start noticing the unseen, how the air feels when you're being guided, how certain places seem to hum with familiarity, how a stranger's eyes can remind you of someone long gone. You live with reverence. Because now you know, nothing is random, nothing is wasted. The fear of death had a way of infecting everything. It made you rush. It made you numb. It made you afraid to let go. But once that fear is dismantled, once you see death for what it truly is, you reclaim your life. You reclaim your power. And you start to show up as the soul you've always been, not the mask you learned to wear. You take risks, not to prove anything, but to express something. You create, not for applause, but to leave a trail of your essence behind. You love, not to be completed, but because love is the language of your soul. And here's something even more beautiful. When you know that death is a reunion, you stop fearing the grief that comes with life. You no longer see grief as proof of something broken. You see it as evidence of something real. You grieve because love mattered. You grieve because the soul bond was, and still is, alive. And that grief becomes less of a wound and more of a thread, one that connects you to the other side, one that reminds you that goodbye is never the end of the story, just the end of a chapter. You stop asking if you're doing life right. You stop needing guarantees, because now you understand the only thing that matters is how present you are, how open your heart stays, how willing you are to remember, again and again, that nothing is ever truly lost, that death does not end relationships, it expands them, that love does not die, it evolves, and maybe, in your quietest moments, you begin to sense the presence that will one day meet you, not in fear, but in familiarity. You might feel them during a sunset, in a dream, in the laughter of a child. You may not know their name, but you'll know their energy, because they've been with you all along, watching, guiding, preparing. And when you arrive, they won't say, "What took you so long?" They'll say, "You made it, and you were never, ever, alone." So yes, this changes everything. It changes how you die, but more importantly, it changes how you live. Because when you know what waits on the other side is love, you begin to make love your way of being on this side. You stop hiding, you stop pretending, you stop delaying your joy, and you begin to walk as someone who is no longer afraid of the ending, because you've seen what the ending really is. It's not darkness, it's not silence, it's not goodbye. It's a hand you already know reaching for you. It's the voice you've longed to hear whispering, "Welcome back." It's the embrace that tells you, you are safe, you are loved, you are home.